Hi and welcome to our third module in our introduction to Vedic astrology. Today we're going to speak about houses. The Sanskrit term for houses is bhava, and bhava does encapsulate much more than the English term house. Bhava literally means feeling and emotion. And so in the same way, the 12 bhavas or the 12 houses in the astrological realm are 12 distinct realms of our life, 12 distinct emotions or flavors or places where we become ourselves, places where we become who we are. We're going to go through the names of the 12 houses and the areas they signify, and then we will discuss various division among them. For example, there's Kendra houses, which are considered the pillars of the horoscope. There's Trikona, or we often say trines, trinal houses, which represent our luck and fortune. Upachayas are houses that get better over time. Duṣṭhānas are the evil houses. Du signifies suffering, evil. So Duṣṭhānas, the place, the sitting place of evil. Ideally, we want these places empty. If planets are there, they can cause havoc, and to which extent we will discuss today, and also what to do about that. And then to have an even more refined understanding of the houses, we'll also learn the Bhavakarakas, which means planets who signify certain realms of life. Marana, Karaka, Sthanas, which refers to houses. Every planet has a house that he doesn't like. Every planet has a house where he feels like they are. Marana, Karaka, Sthana. Marana means death. Karaka means significator. Sthana is the place. So the Marana, Karaka, Sthanas are places where the planets feel like dying. For example, if Venus is situated in the 6th house of celibacy, then Venus will feel like dying. That means in our life, if we're born with this combination, then romantic endeavors and exchanges can sometimes make us feel a little uneasy. And then to round up on a more nicer note, we speak about Bhavat Bhavam. Bhavat Bhavam is literally the house from the house. So the 3rd house is siblings, the 4th house is mother. So the 7th house, which is the 3rd from the 4th, counting inclusively 4, 5, 6. I'd like the 6th house, excuse me, not the 7th, the 6th house. It is the 3rd from the 4th in an inclusive count, and therefore it represents the brother of our mother, or the sister of our mother, the uncle and aunt. Bhavat Bhavam has many usage. It has a great complexity, and it really reveals in our horoscope how our own karma and our own destiny ripples into the destiny of persons in our surroundings, in our world, and vice versa. Okay, beautiful. So this is our first actual slide. It looks much more complex than what it is. The idea is that I was hoping to find a whiteboard. The idea is that we can divide the sky in 12 portions. If we go out at night and we look at the sky and we try to follow the trajectory of the sun from the previous day, the sun has already set, we can only see the stars. But if we follow the course the sun has been tracing throughout the day, then we can see the zodiac signs on this exact same place that the sun traveled the previous day in the night sky. And the belt on which the zodiac signs are situated is called the ecliptic. So it's a great exercise. If you have not done it already, you can get an app. I think it is called Stargaze. There's many apps like that, and you can go out at night and you can identify the stars and you can see their actual position in the sky. Now, what we do in Vedic astrology, we map the position of the stars into different houses. The house, the star sign that was rising at our birth automatically becomes the first house and becomes the significator of ourself. And therefore we say if a person was born when the sign of Aries was rising, therefore we say, oh, Aries is their ascendant sign. And therefore we can attribute many qualities to them because Aries was rising, and the sign that rises becomes the first house of self. Every sign following the rising sign will denote the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth house, etc. It is important to note that the signs, they keep moving, they keep spinning, while the houses, they remain the same. So the ascendant sign will always be the ascendant sign, will always be the first house. The sign after that will always be the second house, and the sign after that always the third. The sign where the sun sets, the sign that was setting during our birth, that will always be the seventh house, etc. So let's look at them a little deeper. The first house is our major indicator for ourself, for our body, and for our vitality. And if we would put the night sky into a diagram on our screen, then we can write it out like this. We have the top square here, which represents our first house. And then we have the second house just right here. Then the third house, the fourth, fifth, the sixth, the seventh, eighth, 9, 10, 11, 12, and back to the first. Nice way to visualize it. I don't have a whiteboard here, but just using my slides a little bit, we can have the earth in the middle, and then we can have the zodiac signs like a belt traveling around the earth. So here we have our 12 zodiac signs, and the signs remain fixed, but the earth keeps rotating. And if we would have this belt, we could number it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And the number 1 would represent Aries, 2 Taurus, 3 Gemini, 4 Cancer, etc. So now the same zodiac signs we can transfer in a diagram of the 12 houses in this chart on the left, which is the North Indian chart. And here we have the first house, the second house, the third house, etc. Now the first house will signify ourself, who we are, our personality, our body, our vitality. And the second house will represent our mouth, the food that goes inside. And the food that goes inside is very much connected to the wealth that we have. A person who does not have many finances will not be able to feed himself. A person who is poor will be hungry. He will not be able to afford nice food. And therefore the second house is the food that we eat. It's also the food we store. It is also the money that we store in our account. But what goes inside our mouth is related to what comes out, and therefore also the second house represents our speech. In an even broader mandala, the second house represents our close community. And there's a karmic connection between our community of origins and the food that we eat and the money that we store. For example, if we come from an impoverished background, it is more likely that we're not able to eat nice food. It is more likely that we might not be the most eloquent speaker. While if we came from a very fine community, the chances are higher that we also had fine food to eat and that our speech is more refined. The third house represents our siblings and our courage. In our body, the third house represents our shoulders and arms, because it is with our shoulders and arms that we get things. It is with our shoulders and arms that we can push people aside to achieve our purpose. And in our personal life, it is our siblings, which are the first living beings that we meet after our parents, which teach us how to exert our will. Because mom and dad, they tend to give the child, while siblings are the first other person that we enact with whom we have to fight. And therefore, if there are malefic planets in the third house, a person can have difficulties with their siblings, which in turn can make them very courageous and very much go-getters. While if there's benefics in the third house, then a person will have very nice and friendly siblings, but it will be a little bit more of a pushover. In the fourth house, yes.
With regards to that diagram that you drew on the right-hand side, for example, the ascendant lord with the first house, where would that be on the wheel? Although we gave numbers to it.
Yes.
In the sky, in relation to the earth, which would become the ascendant lord of the second house?
Beautiful. I love that question. For that, I will just draw a different diagram. And I hope that appeals to you. I must say, you are the art teacher and I am not. But let's say this is the earth. And we have someone standing here. Person's born here on earth. And when he was born, let's say he was born at 10 a.m. and the sun was here. And the horizon is here. So if he was born at 10 a.m., the sun must have just risen a few hours ago. Therefore, here must have been east. And the sun rose here. And therefore, the zodiac sign, which is here, in this portion, this zodiac sign, will become the rising sign. So, for example, if this person was born around 10 a.m. in late February, then the sun will be in Pisces. Therefore, the sign before the sign after Pisces will be Aries. Does that make sense? So if we would draw this in the chart, then we can draw the horizon in the Vedic horoscope. East is always on top, while east, south, west, while west is on the bottom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So in our example horoscope here, the horizon actually is here. Oh, my pen went out of ink. The horizon actually is here in the middle. And the sun rises here in the first house. And then during the day, around 8 or 9 a.m., depending on local sunrise, the sun will go to the 12th house. Then the sun will go to the 11th house. At noon, the sun is in the 10th house. Oops. And then in the evening, the sun will set in the 7th house. And the 4th house is always the midnight point. Does this make sense?
I was just wondering, in some rare cases, well, maybe not rare because we could consider twins or triplets, or just children who are born maybe not from the same mother, but in the same hospital, that's the same place, and then at the same time where they have the same chart. Not twins, because twins have just slightly different time, maybe. But maybe twins have the same time as well, similar. So which means they would have the same chart or similar chart.
That is a beautiful question. So in general, twins are only born 5 to 10 minutes apart from each other. And therefore, most of the time, they will have the same rising sign. And not only will they have the same rising sign, but also the horoscope will be exactly the same. In this case, different astrologers have different opinions. What I have seen work for myself is that the twin that was born first, means the older twin, we use the first house as the ascendant. While for the twin that was born the later time, we use the third house, which signifies the younger brother as the ascendant. And if it's triplets, then we'll use the next younger brother. For the next younger brother, we will use the 5th house as the ascendant. Because the ascendant is who we are, while the 3rd house is our younger brother. And the 5th house is that was what we're going to learn at the end of class in Bhavat Bhavam. The 5th house is the younger brother of the younger brother. And therefore we use the ascendant here. And then we rotate the horoscope and we can read from there. I've not had too many clients who were siblings or triplets, but I had one client, I had 3 clients who were triplets. And it was an amazing learning experience. And I've seen this work myself, therefore I'm advocating for this, but I must let you know, in the astrology community, there's different opinions about that. And combinations that indicate twins or triplets, we will discuss in our advanced courses.
But what about children who are not born of the same mother, but who are born at the same place at the same time? I'm sure sometimes that could happen.
Beautiful, that happens. Indeed, I have, since I see many clients every year, I do have multiple persons who have the same horoscope. And it was very fascinating to me. Sometimes even if a person is just a day born apart, if they're just 24 hours born apart, and if the moon has not moved into a new sign, they will also have the same horoscope. Does that mean their destiny is the same? No. Does it mean they have a lot in common? Yes, they do. So besides the Rashi chakra, which is the horoscope that you see right now, there are finer divisional charts that we can draw. For example, Aries, which is a 30-degree portion of the sky, can be further divided in 2. It can be further divided into 3. It can be further divided into 9, into 10, into 60, into 150. And according to those divisions, we can draw new horoscopes. For example, and these new horoscopes, they're called Varga chakras, divisional charts, and they refer to finer details of life. For example, the most commonly used divisional chart is called the Navamsha, which divides every sign into 9. So for example, Aries starts with itself, so the first 3 degrees of Aries, so a little bit more than 3 degrees of Aries, are Aries. The next 3 degrees of Aries are Taurus. The next 3 degrees of Aries are Gemini, etc. And these finer divisional charts, they change more frequently, up to the Shashtiamsha, which is the 60th division that changes every 2 minutes. And they alter how the horoscope can manifest. The horoscope will only give us the general details about a person's life, while all the nitty and gritty details are actually read from the divisional charts. And the divisional horoscopes can highly alter the promise of the Rashi chakra. They, however, are very time sensitive. They change up to every 2 minutes. And therefore, even persons born in the same hospital, around the same time, even if it was just 3 or 4 minutes, can have a very different karmic unfolding. On top of that, 80% is our horoscope. 20% is all the people they're interacting with. For example, when many times when clients come from me for longevity, it's quite common that children ask me about the longevity of their parents. And I always look at the horoscope of the parents, but I will also look at the horoscope of the children. Because since we can see not only you and your horoscope, but also your family members, all these horoscopes are constantly interacting. Particularly husband and wife, they are the most important. And this is why in the ancient Indian civilization, there was such an emphasis on the horoscope matching between couples. There is a saying that a husband cannot die if his wife is running a good time period. Because how can he die if she is destined to have a good time? It's not possible. And therefore 80% can be read from our horoscope, while 20% is also our other interactions. For example, if the child is born, we would expect, if there would be some dichotomy with the father, we would expect that to appear in the horoscope of the son, if that is also there in the father. If the father did some remedial measure throughout his life and it was indicated in his horoscope to have difficulty with his child, but when the child is born, this karma has been removed, then we will not see it in the child's horoscope. However, if the father for some reason reverses the situation, then it will come up still. Does that answer your question? Nice. Okay, that was such a great question. I really appreciate it. I always feel that questions, they bring out the best. Now, moving forward, the fourth house indicates our home and mother. That is true in traditional society, where the mother was considered the homemaker, but it's also very true in our modern society. If there are malefics in the fourth house, then that will indicate early separation from the mother, physical or emotional. That will indicate a heavy heart. The fourth house is our heavy heart. And also our level of happiness can be a little bit compromised. The fifth house indicates our children, our students. It's the sitting place of our intelligence. We have the sixth house, which are our enemies and obstacles. We have enemies outside, which are competitors, either in the office or elsewhere. There's also enemies inside of our body, which are our Shatripus, the six enemies of the mind, our vices, lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, pride. They're all situated in the sixth house. Also, there are enemies in our body, such as disease, which are all situated here. We will contrast the sixth house with the eighth house. The eighth house over here, it is just in this triangle here. That is the eighth house. It is the house of chronic disease, while the disease manifesting from the eighth house are disease that have not much to do with the current lifestyle we are living, which can occur even though we have not done anything wrong. For example, if Venus is in the eighth house, a person can have a predisposition to through disease with the immune system or with the reproductive system or with the kidneys without doing any damage in this life. While in the sixth house, if Venus is in the sixth house, this can indicate disease related to uncontrolled senses, wrong lifestyle choices that led to disease to that organ. So the sixth house is very much our vices and how they are hurting us, while the eighth house will represent disease that are inherited, such as genetic disorders and more chronic conditions. In the middle of the two, we have the seventh house, which is actually very positive. The seventh house is our spouse, our partner, relationships, love. From the seventh house, we can read the characteristics of our partner and also our attitudes in relationships. The ninth house we can analyze for our worldview, for our fortune. It is related to our father, because while the mother in traditional society was the homemaker, the father was the person who would give us our sense of right and wrong, our dharma, our career, and a lot of our fortune was traditionally inherited through the paternal lineage. Even though this inheritance of fortune does not necessarily occur anymore through the father's lineage, we still look at the ninth house for our general luck in life. If the ninth house is very weak, then it just seems to be just up for a lot of bad luck. But if the ninth house is very strong, then it seems a person is just getting the gold bar laid into their maternity home. Like they're just a baby in their swing, and have the gold bars put under their feet if the ninth house is strong. Ninth house not only indicates material fortune, but also spiritual fortune and our worldview. Then we have the 10th house, which is our work, our career. It is the work we do, but it's also how we are doing our work. And the 11th house represents our social capital, our friends, our networks, and the money that we can make, our salary. While last, we have the 12th house, which indicates loss, expenditures, and the classics also speak about liberation. Liberation is something that we don't really hear in our modern Western culture. And for many listening, it might not have any meaning. But the 12th house, we can also study to learn about the destination after death and how the soul will continue his or her cycle in this world. Now, these are the 12 houses. We can go into unlimited depth. For those of you who've read my book, The Fabric of the Universe, an Introduction to Vedic Astrology, we covered the 12 houses in none less than 400 pages. So this is a pretty brief introduction, but we have to start somewhere. Now, to categorize the houses, we can put them into various groups. One group is Kendras, and Kendras refers to the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, and the 10th house. And Kendras, they are considered the pillars of the horoscope, because the first house is our self. That is who we are. It's very foundational, right? It is a pillar. And then we have the fourth house, which is our home. We can be a great emperor and a great personality, but if we don't have a home, then our happiness in life and our success in life can be significantly hampered. Therefore, the fourth house is also a pillar of the horoscope. And then we have the seventh house, which is our partner, where we can be the most amazing person and we can live in a royal palace. But if we don't have a supportive partner, how can there be success in life? How can there be happiness? Unless we are some renounced monk, maybe. But even then, other people are very important. And the seventh house is our partner and other people in general. If the seventh house is severely afflicted, it is a great support for monastic life. Now, and then we have our 10th house, which is our work. It is our career, not just professional, but it is really also our calling. What are we doing every day? It is where the sun is the highest, the point where we are the most seen. So those four houses, our self, our home, our partner, and our work, are considered Kendras. Kendra houses. They are the most important places of the horoscope. Generally, we like benefic planets in the Kendras, such as Jupiter. Let's excuse my writing. I will do this a little bit more beautiful for you, since I always hated those professors who no one could understand the handwriting. So, Jupiter, JP. Jupiter, we like him in Kendra. If Jupiter is in Kendra, if he's in his own sign or exalted, if he's completely unafflicted by any malefic, he will ensure that you're always provided for. He will ensure there's never any scarcity in your life. You will have all types of wealth, great teachers, children, and a beautiful marriage. Jupiter will make sure there's always resources available. And therefore, Jupiter is considered the greatest benefic. Not only does he give material resources, he also gives wisdom and higher knowledge. Other planets that we really like in Kendra are Venus. Venus also does exceptionally well. Wherever Venus is in the chart, if she's unafflicted, there are rhymes in our life from which we get great pleasures and great joys. And then we finally have the Moon and Mercury. Those are our four benefic planets: Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon. If we are designing the ideal horoscope, we would like them in Kendra or even in Kona. Kona are the 5th and 9th house. Benefics also do well in Kona. The 5th house is our intelligence. And the 9th house is our fortune. These 6 houses are the most benefic houses in the horoscope. And therefore, we also like benefic planets in them. Of them, the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th, the Kendras are the pillar. Because even if we don't have a strong 5th house, even if we don't have make the best decision-making ability, and even if we don't have much, quote-unquote, fortune, at least if we have a strong personality, if we have a home, if we have a partner and a work to do, there will be no problem. Now, Kendras are divided into 4 groups or 4 types of Kendras. We have the first house, which is our Dharma Kendra. It is the place of Dharma. Dharma means virtue and purpose. And from the Dharma Kendra, we have our Trikon, the 5th and 9, our Dharma trines. You can see they make a beautiful, sometimes I run out of ink. They make a beautiful triangle. And therefore we call them trines. And in general, unless we specify any further, unless any astrologer specifies further, when he speaks about trines, he actually speaks about the Dharma trines. Technically, there are other trines as well. But we can see how the Dharma trines, the first house our self, the 5th house our intelligence, and the 9th house our worldview and fortune are very much connected to us fulfilling our purpose. Now there's the second trine, which is the Artha trine. So the 10th house, the significator of work, is related to Artha. Artha means economic development, making money. And in trine, from the 10th house, we do have the 2nd and 6th house. The 2nd house is our bank balance. And the 6th house is our competition. It is how we are solving problems. So how shall we call that? It is our hard work. It is our ability to overcome obstacles. While the 10th house is very much the work, our career, the 6th house is more like our discipline or how we are working. If there is a lot of malefics, then we can do a lot of physical work. We don't mind doing hard work. We don't mind overcoming obstacles. If there is benefics, then we have a much softer approach to our work and to solving problems. So we can see how the 2nd, the 6th and 10th house are very much related to Artha, to economic development. The 2nd house, our bank account, that is where we store our wealth. And the 10th house is the job that we do, while the 6th house is our approach to work and how we are accomplishing that. They are all connected to Artha. Then the 7th house is our main Karma Kendra. Karma Kendra. Karma is not karma, there's no R, it is Karma. Karma means pleasure. So the 7th house, our partner, is that realm in our life where we enjoy. There's so much pleasure that can come from a fulfilling relationship. And if we don't have that, we do feel a significant compromise of happiness in our life. And in trines to the 7th house, we have the 11th and the 3rd. Now, the 3rd house can be our hobbies. It is our hands, the work we do. It is also Mithuna Bhava, so it's a place of copulation. So to write it in a really raw language, it's the house of sex. But the 11th house is our friends, our social capital, our social connections, and also our salary, the money that we make. And we can see how there's a special connection between the karma trines. And how we can see how everything indicated by the karma trines gives us pleasure. There is pleasure in associating with our friends. There's pleasure in making a salary and using that for our partner, for our hobbies, etc. And if there's an affliction to one of them, we can see how that ripples a little bit to the others. There's always we can always read the trines together to learn more about that realm of life. If you want to learn more about Dharma, we read the Dharma trines together. If you want to learn more about a person's karma and their pleasures in life, we read about the karma trines. And then last, we have the Moksha Kendra, which is the 4th house. The 4th house is our home. And in trine, we have the 8th house, which is our sacrifice. Oh, excuse me. And the 12th house, which is our sleep. It is also liberation. Okay. So there's different viewpoints. If you would take the least spiritual viewpoint, the 4th house is our home. And it is the place where we rejuvenate. It's the place of freedom. At home, we can do what we want. It is opposite to our career. At work, we cannot do what we want. We have to do what we have to do. And we naturally, every person has a desire for dharma. Every person has a desire to live with purpose. And the Vedic philosophy describes that if a person lives according to their purpose, if they fulfill their dharma, then they can naturally get artha. They can naturally advance economically because everyone has a purpose that is meaningful. Unfortunately, in modern society, we're very removed from our natures and we're very much removed from our natural proclivities and our purpose, and therefore many people are very confused about work and what to do. And often our work is very removed from our nature. In the Vedic world, this was not like that, because people would be engaged according to their dharma, according to their proclivities, their intelligence and their worldview, and they would do a certain type of work which would allow them to make money. And in return, after accumulating artha and wealth, they could enjoy life because they could have a family, they can have a spouse, they can have children, they can have many friends and invite friends to their home and etc. and enjoy life in this way. And then there's a natural desire after attaining all of that, there's a natural desire for freedom. It doesn't matter how much we love our spouse. But then that day, when our spouse, let's say if we had been on a 3 months vacation with our spouse and we have been together living on top of each other for every single day for 3 months, and then comes that Monday morning and our husband goes to work again. It is nice. Finally, there's a little bit of freedom. Now I can be myself completely in every way. Hopefully you could always be yourself, but we can see there is a desire, innate desire that everyone has for freedom. And then, okay, in the evening, we're happy when he comes back. The same with children. We love our children so much. But then when our children finally go away for one weekend and they stay over with their friends, there's some freedom. Okay, we want our children to come back for sure. But we all have a desire for freedom. And that is seen from the moksha trines. On a higher level, that freedom does not only represent this temporary freedom in our interpersonal relationships, but it even represents a freedom from the sufferings of this world. And our home gives us some shelter, but ultimately we have the 8th house, which represents spiritual practices and tantric practices, or the 12th house, which is the place where we lose ourselves. So we lose ourselves in the 12th house in sleep. The 12th house is the bedroom, it is where we sleep, and we lose ourselves there momentarily. While the 12th house also represents ultimate liberation. If a person can escape the cycle, we also read that from the 12th house. This is the division of the houses according to Kendra Trikona. I hope you understand the utility of this. Now, the second division of the houses, or third division, is according to Upachaya. And the Upachaya houses are the 3rd, the 6th, the 10th, and the 11th. Upachaya houses increase over time. We see Kendras and Konas, technically they cover all the houses that are available. So houses can carry multiple significations simultaneously. We have the 3rd house of courage, the 6th house of discipline. I know previously the 6th house was our enemies. Whenever we're disciplined, we're overcoming our inner enemies, right? Therefore, they're all connected to the same line. The 10th house of our work and the 11th house of our salary. Now, ideally, we like malefics in Upachaya. Ideally, we don't want benefics in Upachaya. The 10th house, it is a Kendra and an Upachaya simultaneously. Therefore, both benefics and malefics will perform well in the 10th house. The 3rd and the 6th, ideally, we only like malefics. Malefics such as Mars, Saturn, Rahu, the Sun, and Ketu. Particularly Mars, Saturn, Rahu, and Sun, they excel in the 3rd, 6th, and 10th or 11th house. Particularly in the 3rd and 11th house, if malefic planets are there, they do not hurt our body. In any other house except for the 3rd or 11th, malefic will hurt the part of our body associated with the house or the sign, not in the 3rd or 11th. Therefore, those are the best places for malefics. If malefics are particularly in the 3rd or in the 6th house, a person has great power and courage to overcome the enemies. Not because the Upachayas are getting better over time, any problems associated with malefics and these placements will be overcome in time. And we can also see how our hobbies increase over time, our discipline in life increases, our career actually takes quite some years before it even starts. The same with our salary. Then there is the last division of houses, which is called Dusthana. And we have the 6th house again, which is not only an Upachaya, but also a Duṣṭhāna. We have the 8th and the 12th. The Duṣṭhānas are evil houses, and ideally we would like them to be empty, particularly the 8th and the 12th house. Planets in these houses, they will cause problems, they will cause suffering. Disease in the 6th house are the disease that we occur, the actions that we occur against our self-interest, which harm us. Disease in the 8th house are inherited. And planets in the 12th house, they indicate loss. Benefics do better in the 12th house than malefics. The 12th house is the money that we spend. And if there's benefics, at least we spend money on good causes. Venus does the best in the 12th house. And if Venus is in the 12th house, especially if she's strong, we've spent money on luxurious goods, which can have a higher value. And we'll also sleep very well. Benefics in the 12th will also give good sleep. If there's malefics, we will have unnecessary expenses, and also our sleep can be disturbed. The 12th house also has on a higher frequency, the 12th house is related to marriage. Because our spouse is that one person to whom we lose everything. But we like to phrase it nicely. So we're not losing, we're giving. If there's benefics in the 12th house, they're very favorable for marriage. If there's malefics, they can block marriage. Particularly Saturn, Mars, and Rahu and Ketu. If these planets are in the 12th house, a person is married to a life path or to a higher calling more than to another person. While benefics there can give very good experiences in marriage. Now, these are the divisions of houses. Now the houses, they interact with each other, and we can study a house by looking at the planets in the house. We can also study the house by looking at the placement of a lord. For example, in this horoscope here, let's give this example horoscope of a Taurus ascendant. So in the North Indian chart, the numbers in the horoscope do not signify the sign, the houses, but signify the signs. So this is not here, we have number 2, then this will be number 3, 4, 5. We're just drawing the example horoscope of a Taurus individual. Now, in this horoscope, we can see that in the 7th house is the number 8. The number 8 represents Scorpio. And in our last week's class, we learned that Scorpio is lorded by 2 planets, Mars and co-lord Ketu. Now, if we want to learn about relationships, we can look at planets in the 7th house. Let's say there is Jupiter. then we can say something very nice about the relationship. Oh, Jupiter is there. That means there will be many opportunities. There will be very wise and very intelligent partners, etc. Like this. It is Jupiter. Oh, the partner could be very big, very tall. Or we can say the husband or wife, she could be extremely learned. She could be a teacher or educator, etc. Now, we can also look at the Lord of the house, which refers to the planet lording the sign in their position. So in our example of Scorpio, we have Mars and we have Ketu. So let's say if Mars is here in the 8th house and Ketu is in the 12th house. Now, this will give a whole another layer and a much more nuanced understanding of the houses, because now we can see that the Lord of relationships, either Mars or Ketu, has gone to a Dusthana, which will make the first relationship a little bit more difficult. The 8th house is the house of death, and the 12th house is the house of loss. So if the Lord of relationships has gone to the house of death or the house of loss, that is not very auspicious. And in general, we would recommend such a person to consult an astrologer and do the necessary remedies, especially before the first marriage occurs. Otherwise, the first marriage will always have a little bit of flavor of loss and death. The same holds true for Jupiter, who, taking this knowledge, is also the Lord of Pisces and Sagittarius, and has gone to the 7th house. So as the Lord of Death, we can see that Jupiter suddenly has another indication. He's not just Jupiter, the planet indicating wisdom and wealth and expansion in the house of relationships. Now, no, it's also the Lord of Death in the house of relationships. And he's also the 11th Lord. The 11th Lord is our hopes. So there's also the Lord of our hopes. Now, we will have to learn some more advanced techniques to differentiate which house Jupiter is going to favor. But I just want to introduce you to the complexity of a horoscope. We could also predict for such a person that, oh, if the 11th Lord is in the 7th house, once you get married, all your hopes and dreams are going to come true. Because wherever the 11th Lord goes, he carries our hopes and our dreams. Because the 11th house is also connected to that. So we covered Duṣṭhānas. We also spoke a little bit about the bhāveśa, the Lord of the house. Now, if that was not already enough, and if your head is not already steaming, we could use even more to understand the houses. And that is the Bhavakaraka. Now, every house has 3 primary significators. Or the results of every house has 3 primary significators. We just spoke about the planets in the house. We spoke about the Lord of the house. And now, lastly, there is the Bhavakaraka, the significator of the house. And for the first house, the significator is the sun. And that is nothing new, because we already learned that the sun is the significator of self, right? And now we have the first house of self. So now if we want to judge a person, we not only read their ascendant sign, but we can also read their sun sign. We not only look at planets in the first house, but we can also look at planets conjoined the sun. The second house has the Bhavakaraka for Jupiter, who is also the Bhavakaraka for the 5th house, for the 9th house, and for the 11th house. And for a woman, he's also the significator of the 7th house. Oh goodness, look at this Jupiter. He's ruling half of the horoscope. And therefore Jupiter is considered also among the greatest benefics. Because if Jupiter is strong, then all these realms of life will be taken care of. Here we have the 2nd house of finances. We have the 5th house of intelligence. It is also investments. Like our children, they are an investment. Obviously, we don't want to look at the payoff, but we do, right? We do actually think of the payoff. But even if we don't gain anything from it, just for them, the children are most likely the most wonderful investment we can have in our life, right? So many say so. The 9th house is our fortune. It's also our luck with money, our gurus and our teachers. And the 11th house, our salary. Our friends in the 11th house are more seen from Mercury. And now for women, Jupiter also is the husband. So now if Jupiter is very strong in the horoscope, luckily all these houses, they are taken care of. The Bhavakaraka, he's the foundation of the house. While the planets and the Lord, they're like the piece that we build on top, all the 4 walls and the roof. But what is the gain of having 4 walls and a roof if there's no stable foundation? So the Bhavakaraka is the foundation for all these realms. And therefore we say if Jupiter is weak in the horoscope, sometimes we can see it ripples into every realm of life. And then if we fix just this one Jupiter, then suddenly everything in a person's life starts functioning. Then we have Mars. Mars is a significator for the 3rd house. And that's nothing new. We already learned that Mars is a significator for siblings, for courage. We just take that together with the 3rd house. In the 6th house, he signifies our enemies as well. He's also the significator for the 10th house, where he signifies our ambition and career. If you look at the 4th and 10th house in particular, we can see there's actually many planets that are the significators for that house. Let's look at the house of home first. So we want to differentiate. What happens if there's a malefic planet in the 4th house of home? We already learned that malefics don't dwell in Kendra, or we don't really like Saturn, Mars, Rahu, Ketu in the house of home. Saturn will cause separation, Mars will cause aggression, Ketu will cause alienation, Rahu will cause chaos, the Sun will cause domination. But now, let's say that Saturn is in the 4th house of home, and then we know there's separation. Where is that separation? Is that separation from our mother? Is it separation from our property? Our car is also in the 4th house as a movable home, as a comfort of transport. Where will it be? To understand that, we will look at the Bhavakaraka. And the moon represents our mother, while Mars represents our land. Ketu represents the house, and Venus represents vehicles. For example, in my horoscope, I have Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 4th house of home. This will give a very nice home because it is Jupiter. He will expand this place, especially if he's strong. So I grew up in a very nice home. However, my moon is in Scorpio. The moon does not like Scorpio. And therefore, I grew up in a very beautiful home, but my mother, she was always working. So I did get a nice home. I do have a nice 4th house. But because the Bhavakaraka of the moon was not there to support it, this Jupiter could not give the same expansion in the realm of mother. So in this way, the Bhavakarakas allow us for a much deeper differentiation of the houses and the various realms indicated by them. Then we have Saturn as the Bhavakaraka of the 6th house. If we look, Saturn is the Bhavakaraka of all the Dusthana houses, and therefore the Duṣṭhānas are evil because of the Bhavakaraka, the Karakatva of Saturn. So he empowers the Duṣṭhānas to give us suffering. And wherever Saturn is in the horoscope, there's usually a little bit of suffering. So also any planet in Dusthana, or wherever those Dusthana lords are, there is a little bit more pain and suffering. In the 6th house, Mars represents our enemies outside, but Saturn in particular refers to disease. In the 8th house, obviously, Saturn is chronic disease, and in the 12th house, he is loss. Saturn also has Karaka over the 10th house, and there he shows our ability to work hard. If Saturn is very strong, a person can work very hard. If Saturn is in Aquarius, then in the 10th house, a person, they will be very hardworking. Most likely, there will be delays in their career until midlife. And those delays make them even more disciplined and hardworking. Then we have Venus. For a man, we have Venus. She is the significator of the 7th house. For a woman, Jupiter is the significator of husband. And finally, we have Mercury as significator for the 10th house. In the 10th house, Mercury signifies our ability for business and commerce. Are we able to integrate our skills into our career? Well, our leadership ability is very much seen from the strength of the sun. And the sun also obviously is our indicator for father. So in this way, we can understand the houses through the lens of the Bhava-Karakas. Now the planets also have a house which I don't like. And while the Bhavakaraka is an underlying principle of the horoscope that we'll have to understand, that is always true. The sun is always the Bhavakaraka for the 1st house, for the father in the 9th house, for leadership in the 10th house. Jupiter is always the Bhavakaraka for the 2nd, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 11th house, etc. Now, the Marana Karaka Sthana of a planet, the placement of a planet where he or she feels like he is dying, that might not apply to every horoscope. Because Saturn will feel Marana Karaka Sthana in the 1st house. But not every horoscope will have Saturn in the 1st house. Some horoscopes will have no planet Marana Karaka Sthana. And that is fantastic. That is great. However, they're important to memorize, and if we have any planets in Marana Karaka Sthana, then immediately we can learn a lot about ourselves, and particularly we can understand where the certain thorns are in our life. For example, Saturn is Marana Karaka Sthana in the 1st house. If he's situated in the 1st house, then we could have difficulties looking after our health. Just imagine the Marana Karaka Sthana arrives by the discrepancy between the planet's natural characteristics and the significations of a house. For example, the 1st house reveals our vitality and our health. Now imagine if the planet of disease is sitting in the house of health. Saturn, we don't like to harm our own house, right? We don't, even if we're the most sinful person, we might steal from others, but we will not steal from ourselves or from our close members. So in the same way also, the planets do not like to hurt or harm their own house or the place where they are. So if Saturn is in the 1st house of health, we can see there's a big in alignment, a big interruption between our health, and there can be difficulty maintaining our health, particularly until Saturn matures at 35. Now, if Ketu is in the 2nd house, that can give problems with finances, because the 2nd house is our bank account. And imagine Ketu. Ketu is a monk. Imagine you put the planet of monkhood and you make him a banker. How will he feel? He will not know what to do. I remember many years ago, I was visiting a spiritual community in New Zealand, and there was a lady. She was a great yogini. Her body was very full, and she did not seem as if she was eating little, but actually she was only living from 1 cup of juice and a small handful of salad leaves every day. But she was chanting mantras and she was meditating, and her body was very, very full. There was no sign that she was not eating because of her spiritual power. One day I gifted her $20. I was only 18, so $20, that was a lot of money for me. And she got very confused. She was very confused. She didn't know what to do with it. I saw it, we were walking and we came by a shop, and she went in to buy something for the farm. And then she had a little bit of money left, but she didn't know what to do with it. Similar to Ketu, if he's in the second house of finances. Money does not become so important to us. And a good example of that is Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein has also Ketu in the second house. And we can see how he was he could have made millions of dollars with his discoveries, but he did not desire so. He just wanted to share the knowledge. Therefore, Ketu in the second is not necessarily always bad. It just can be bad for that one drama in our life. Jupiter is Marana Karaka Sthana in the third house. The third house is also the house of partying, of gambling. It's the house of sexual intercourse. So imagine Jupiter, who is the priest, who is very clean and pure. And if he's placed in the house of parties and intoxication, he will feel Marana Karaka Sthana. He will feel like he's dying. The fourth house is our home, and there's two planets associated with the Marana Karaka Sthana position. One is Mercury, one is Ketu. Mercury is in the fourth house. The fourth house can be also considered to our primary school education. And Mercury is a child who just doesn't want to sit still in school, who just wants to go out and play. And therefore Mercury in the fourth house can give communication issues at home. Jupiter in the third house can make a person too soft in achieving their goals. And Ketu, who is again our monk, you can't keep the monk at home. He left home, and now he's again at home. He will feel really alienated. So if Ketu is in the fourth house, there will be alienation from family members, and ideally we should make our home an ashram. As previously mentioned, we have Venus. Oh, and if Venus is in the sixth house is the house of vice. It's also the house of celibacy. And if Venus is in the house of celibacy, oh, dancing girl who just likes to enjoy life, she doesn't feel very happy there. And the same with Mars, who is our celibate warrior. If he's in the house of relationships, then there's a problem. There's a misalignment. Mars in the seventh house always can give problems with the partner, arguments, violence, power play, domination. And it's not mentioned here, but actually Mercury is also Marana Karaka Sthana in the seventh house. Because he is the child who likes to play. If he's in the seventh house, he's not mature enough for relationships. If he's in the seventh house, it can indicate an immaturity in relationships, an emotional immaturity in dealing with another person. It can also often give a marriage to a person who's much younger. Saturn can give a partner who is much older, maybe 20 years or 10 years. Mercury can give marriage to a person who's 10 years younger. Or he can also give communication problems depending on his strength. And then we have the moon. The moon, of all the Marana Karaka Sthanas, the moon is considered the worst. And the Marana Karaka Sthana position of the moon has his own name. Ashtachandra. It's called Ashtachandra. I think it's called Ashtachandra. The moon in the eighth. Because the eighth house is the eighth house, it is our colon, right? It is where all the waste comes out. It is Scorpio. It is that water that stops moving, that is toxic. And if the moon is there, there's just a lack of emotional processing. And therefore that placement is considered the most detrimental among all the Marana Karaka Sthana positions. If the moon is in the eighth house, there is a problem in emotional processing that ideally requires remedy and a lot of introspection. Problems with the mother are guaranteed if the moon is Marana Karaka Sthana. Now Rahu, he feels Marana Karaka Sthana in the ninth house of religion. Imagine the planet of Adharma, Rahu, the planet, the cheat and swindler, and he is situated in the house of religion. He feels like he's dying over there. And Rahu in this placement can make a person atheist. He can make a person who rebels against their teacher, a person who likes to break away from tradition. And I've also seen in practical experience, I have no explanation for this, but Rahu is placed in it also can make a weekend. Yeah. No value judgment. I've just seen. I'm just sharing my findings. And in the 12th house, the sun feels Marana Karaka Sthana in the 12th house. The 12th house is the house of loss. It's the house where we're not seen, like when we're sleeping. We're usually not seen when we're sleeping. And the sun wants to shine. The sun wants to be seen. If the sun is in the 12th house, we feel like we're not seen. We feel like we're not valued. We feel like we're not appreciated. We feel we're not good enough. It often indicates some issues with father too. It's interesting, there's no planet Marana Karaka Sthana in the 10th house or in the 11th house. Generally, every planet performs well in the 10th or in the 11th house, even malefics. Yes? Did you ask a question?
I was just pointing out, what about the 5th house?
Also, no planet feels Marana Karaka Sthana in the 5th house. The 5th house, it is a trine. It's a Dharma trine. Like the 5th and 9th in particular, they're called the Dharma trines. They're the places of Lakshmi. They're highly auspicious. And generally no planet feels Marana Karaka Sthana in those places. Only Rahu. Because Rahu, he is just a troublemaker. He likes to cross boundaries. And even though no planet feels Marana Karaka Sthana in the 5th and 9th, Rahu chooses the 9th, the place of religiosity. Generally, it can be seen that malefic planets tend to be Marana Karaka Sthanas in Kendra. Excuse me. Yeah, no, generally, that's right. Generally, malefic planets are Marana Karaka Sthana in Kendra, while benefic planets are Marana Karaka Sthana in Duṣṭhānas. With the exception of the sun, which is also Marana Karaka Sthana in the 12th house. There is a deeper teaching about that, but it will go beyond the scope of this course, and we cover that in our advanced modules. If you have time after this course, open your horoscope. I post a link in the bottom of the video description. There's a free astrological software. It's called Deva.guru. It was developed by a programmer in my astrological lineage, a co-student. And you can enter your birth details into the horoscope, into the software. You can draw your own chart. You can read your rising sign. You will be able to read the planetary positions. Can you relate to it? Do you have any planet in Marana Karaka Sthana position? What does that mean to you? It is also important to note, if any planet is in this position, not only will the planet suffer, but also the houses, the planet's lords. For example, in this horoscope, if this would be an example horoscope, which would be quite unfortunate, let's put a number here. Let's say this would be the horoscope of a Virgo. So if you open Deva Guru and you enter your birth details and you have the number 6 on the ascendant, we know this is Virgo. And Saturn would be in the 1st house. Then we would have here the number 10, we would have here the number 11, because the signs always go in chronological order. So then Saturn would be Marana Karaka Sthana. That means a person might struggle. They might not look after their health enough. And particularly as time progresses, they can face the consequences. But not only that, also the 5th house, which is the house of children, and the 6th house, which is the house of disease, will also make a person feel a little bit uncomfortable. If Saturn is Marana Karaka Sthana, then also the 5th lord will make a person feel like they're dying. Or the 11th house, disease, will make them feel like they're dying. Which will give a very absurd dilemma in this horoscope, because the 5th lord, the lord of children, has gone to the head. So a person will be always thinking about them. Well, because Saturn is Marana, Karaka, Sthana, they might not think in the best way. So that is a brief introduction how we utilize this concept. If you want to go into more details, we cover all of this in depth in our advanced course. And then last but not least, we're going to teach about Bhavat Bhavam. And Bhavat Bhavam basically is the house from the house. So if we would represent the houses as people, then we'll have, in the third house, we'll have our siblings. In the fourth house, we have our mother. In the fifth house, we have our children. In the seventh house, we have our partner. And in the ninth house, our father. In the 10th house, our boss, our friends, etc. Now, we can look at the houses from any reference point to read the house from the house, or what is called Bhavat Bhavam. For example, the 6th house is our uncle or auntie. Because if we count, we always do inclusive counts in Vedic astrology. We count 1, 2, 3. So the third house is our sibling, our younger brother. Now, if we count from the fourth house, 1, 2, 3, we get to the 6th. So therefore, if we would rotate the entire horoscope by 90 degrees, we put the mother on top, then this triangle down here, the 6th house, would be the siblings of the mother. Therefore, the 6th house is our uncles and aunties. We can do the same from another position. And we could look, for example, at the 11th house, which is the third house from the 9th house. And therefore, the 11th house can represent our uncle and aunties from our father's side. We can also look at the 2nd house, which is our community of origin, our extended family, our neighbors. And therefore, the 8th house represents the in-laws. Because the 8th house is the 2nd house, if we count here, 1, 2. The community is the 2nd house from ourselves. So counting 1 and 2, the in-laws are the communities of our partner. The 2nd house is the money we have on our bank. And therefore the 8th house is also the money that our partner has on their bank. Therefore the 8th house is our joint finances. The 7th house is other people in general. And therefore the 8th house is also our inheritance. Money that we gain from others. We can do this in many other ways, and we can learn more about the houses by looking from a different angle. We can, now I went a bit fast. We can learn more about the houses by looking at their position from others. For example, the 4th house is our primary education. And the 5th house is our intelligence, as discussed previously. Now, the 2nd house from anything is that which nourishes that house. In the same way, how our 2nd house is the food we eat, right? That is us. Shall I write me or shall I write you? Right, that is I, I. The sense of I, ourself, is in the ascendant. And in the 2nd house from that, 1, 2, is the food that we eat, that which nourishes us. Now the 5th house is our intelligence. And the intelligence is that which nourishes our education via particular primary education, such as going up until high school. While the 12th house from any house is that which causes loss. Like we lost our body in the 12th house, is where we sleep. So also the 12th house from anything can cause that house to lose. So in the 4th house, which is our education, can lose in the 3rd house, which are our traits, our hobbies. If the 3rd house is stronger than the 5th house, a person might not complete their base education, but might learn a trade instead. Because they're more learned with their hands, and their hands are 12th from the 4th. Their trades and hobbies are 12th from their primary education. And so on. Yes?
I might be a little confused here, but just to clarify. So children would be nourished by mother, and mother would be nourished by siblings?
Mother would be nourished by siblings. Not necessarily. No, it is more that your siblings are nourished by your mother. Because if you look, siblings are here. So we count 1, 2. So the mother is in the 2nd house from our siblings. So the 2nd house from anything is that which feeds that house. So who feeds your siblings? Oh, it is your mother. And also the siblings are the 12th house from the mother. So you could say the siblings are losing mother. So you could say you're losing your mother on your siblings. Or we can say that the 12th house from the mother, from the 4th house, is the the bedroom of the mother. Because our 12th house is our bedroom. And where do siblings come from? Siblings come from the bedroom of your mother. I could just see your head shake, like, no, it does not make sense. So let's try this again. I just keep it, I teach you exactly the same thing again. We just make it a bit more, I can't take this off because of the way the slide work, but okay. We have the principle, the 12th house is nourishment. The 2nd house of anything is nourishment. And the 12th house from anything is loss. Okay? That is clear. And we have us in the middle. Like 2, 12, 1. I mean, okay, it's already there. So now, if you read, we are always reading the chart in this direction, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay? That is the direction in which we read. Okay? So, if we start from here, if we take the mother as the 1st house, then we speak about the self of the mother. Right? And then if you look at the 3rd house, the 3rd house is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 houses away. Actually, let's keep the numbers. Okay, so the siblings are, the 3rd house is 12 houses away from the mother, correct? Therefore, the 3rd house is the 12th house of mother. So the 12th house can signify the bedroom. Right? It is where we sleep. It is where we lose ourselves. And therefore, the siblings, they come from the 12th house of mother. Now, from our perspective, could we say that we lose our mothers and siblings? If mother spends more time with the siblings, maybe she's not spending more time with us. Maybe you could say that, true. From the perspective of the siblings, the mother, she is in the second house. If we count, here, we put the first house here. So then, 1, 2. So, what is the nourishment of the siblings? Oh, it is the mother.
Yes, but then the nourishment from the mother's perspective would be the children? That's what I didn't get.
Let's have a look at that. That is a great point. So, the 5th house is feeding the 4th house, right? So technically, from our perspective, maybe we can say the 5th house is our children, right? And if we have good children, oh, it pleases our mother, right? That nourishes our children. That nourishes our mother. If we have good progeny, our mother is happy. Have you seen this before? You know, the mother, she's like, oh, son, when are you having a child? Why are you not having a child? Why are you giving me so much anxiety, you know? Because there's malefics in the 5th house. There's Saturn. There's Saturn in the 5th house. Saturn. He only matures at 35, so there's no kids before 35. And therefore Saturn, he's feeding the mom. Oh my God, you're eating Saturn. Oh, no taste. Son, when are you having a child? The 4th house is also the basic education, because it was the parents which would give basic education. If the child is very smart, there's benefics in the 5th house. Mother is so happy, education is flourishing. There's malefics there, he's not understanding. The education is not flourishing. Does that make sense?
It makes more sense now, but I think I'd need to see more examples of all of the different points that you showed.
Definitely. And also, we will look at more examples now that we have understood the basic ingredients of the horoscope. We will look at more examples, particularly at the end of this course. We have 6 modules. The next module is about strength. So we'll learn a little bit more how to judge, is this a good Saturn? Is it a bad Saturn? Is it a good Jupiter? We will cover that next week. And then at the end of our little mini module, we will look at a few horoscopes to exemplify all these principles. Because to really learn astrology, we need real life examples. But first, we like to get the theory. And the principle of Bhavat Bhavam, it is absolutely amazing. It opens unlimited doors for astrological understandings. There's no end to the application of Bhavat Bhavam. And there's many astrologers which have been practicing for more than 50 years, which are till this day thinking about Bhavat Bhavam and the implications for the house. For example, a secret teaching that I've been meditating upon is the 6th house. It is our vice. Excuse me, I am getting a lot of messages. Let me turn off my phone. The 6th house is the house.
It's not me, I'm not messaging you.
Thank you. Thank you. The 6th house is the house of vice. And now the 2nd house and the 7th house, where they're not just places of nourishment and partners, but in more advanced courses, we're going to learn how the 2nd and the 7th house, they are also Maraka. Maraka means they have the power to kill. And one day when you leave because of a planet associated to your 2nd or 7th house. And if you don't have any planet there is another way to determine them. Don't worry. It doesn't mean that you will be spared. But the 2nd and 7th are Maraka, so they have the power to kill us. So the 2nd or 7th from any house has the power to kill that house. Now the 2nd house, the 6th house, is our vices, our shatripus, our inner enemies, lust, anger, greed, envy, etc. And our partner, the 7th house, is maraka to our vices. And therefore, marriage or relationships, they can bring out the worst in us. They can bring up all these negative qualities that no one has ever seen. Suddenly they're all coming out. But the house of relationships also has the power to kill them. And therefore, traditionally in Vedic culture, marriage actually was not just karma, full pleasure and enjoyment. No, it was purification of our vices and of our intentions. And that was something that I've been meditating upon recently. Very, very fascinating. Very fascinating. And opposite to the house of vices, we have the house of loss, which is also an indicator for marriage. Which is also, you see, both Maraka houses to vices are the 7th and 12th, the house of marriage and the house of relationship. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, yeah, there's many more ways we can look at it. For example, the 8th house, it becomes even more malefic. There's this debate in the astrological world, which house is worse, the 6th or the 8th. Many say the 6th, but some say the 8th. I say the 8th. Actually, it's debatable, but I have an argument for the 8th. Because the 8th, it is the 12th of the 9th. And the 9th is our dharma. It is fortune. And the 8th house is the loss of fortune. Therefore, the 8th house becomes even more evil. The 8th house also is the place that we understand the least. The 8th house from anything, from any placement, is some area that part does not understand. So I hope, if you have the choice, don't marry the person who has the 8th sign, your 8th house rising. Don't marry your 8th house rising. If you are an Aries ascendant, maybe be careful if you marry Scorpio. At least both of them are lorded by Mars. But let's say if you are Taurus ascendant, maybe be careful about marrying Sagittarius rising. And also, the most evil things that happen during the day often happen when our 8th house rises. So if the person that you're dating is messaging you when your 8th house is rising, watch out for calamity. Just joking.
So what about friendships? What about friendships, not just marriage, in those same placements?
Yeah, friends is fine. Friends is fine. Because friends we do see and then we don't see them, But people who marriage is a person that we share the same bed with. So that it's always there. Imagine you're sleeping next to your 8th house. Sleeping next to the house of death. I'm just trying to keep it juicy for all of you guys who are listening. So I know that half the times this is what you guys keep writing me. So yes, tune in for an entire seminar based on relationships industry. Next week, we're going to speak more about strength evaluation. So looking forward to have you all there. Then we speak about special combinations, then timing. And then at the end, we look at some horoscopes. So if there is any particular horoscope that you want to pull apart, you can send it to me. Otherwise, I have to choose my own. So see you soon. Thank you. Any last question? Are you waving or asking a question? Okay. See you.